The secret to 6 years, you see, is choosing to love them, even when you don't feel like it.
I almost killed my wife in 1987. Not with my hands, mind you. With words. Words so sharp they could cut through 60 years of what I thought was love. I was 70 years old, married for 30 years, and I discovered something about her that nearly destroyed everything we had built together. My name is Joseph Hawkins. I'm 103 years old, and I'm about to tell you the real secret to a long marriage. It's not what you think. It's darker than that. And if you're young and in love right now, you might not want to hear this, but you need to. You see, everyone talks about love like it's this beautiful, pure thing. Like it's enough to carry you through. Hollywood sells you fairy tales. Your parents tell you sweet lies. But I've lived through the Great Depression, to world wars, and the death of my beloved Margaret 3 years ago. I've seen what real love looks like when it's stripped down to its bones. And let me tell you something, kid, it ain't pretty. They say the secret to marriage is communication. Bull. They say it's compromise. More bull. They say it's finding your soulmate. The biggest bull of all. I'm going to tell you what nobody wants to admit. What nobody has the guts to say out loud. The real secret to staying married for 60 years isn't about love at all. It's about something much more uncomfortable. Something that makes people squirm in their seats when I tell them. But before I get to that, let me tell you how it all started. How a farm boy from Nebraska who never kissed a girl until he was 22 ended up learning the hardest lesson about marriage that there is. It was 1943, and I was shipping out to the Pacific, 26 years old, scared as hell, and convinced I was going to die on some god-forsaken island whose name I couldn't even pronounce. That's when I met Margaret at the USO dance in San Francisco. She was 18, had these green eyes that could stop a train, and she danced like she was floating on air. I was clumsy, stepped on her feet 3 times, but she laughed anyway. Not one of those polite laughs either. A real laugh that came from her belly and made her whole face light up. We had one night together before I shipped out. One night of dancing, talking until dawn, and making promises we weren't sure we could keep. I told her I'd come back for her. She told me she'd wait. We were young and stupid and thought love conquered everything. We wrote letters for 2 years while I fought in places that still give me nightmares. Her letters kept me alive through battles that should have killed me 10 times over. When I came back in 1945, she was still there, still beautiful, still laughing, still believing in fairy tales. We got married 3 months later in a little church in Omaha. Her dress was her mother's, altered with shaking hands and tears of joy. My suit was borrowed from my brother. We had $17 to our name and thought we were the richest people in the world. The first 10 years were good. Hell, they were great. We moved to a little house outside Chicago where I got work at the steel mill. Margaret worked as a secretary until our first child came along. Then our second. Then our third. We were building something together. Or so I thought. We had our fights, sure, but we always made up. We had our struggles. Money was tight. The work was hard. But we had each other. I thought I knew her. I thought I understood what made her tick. I thought marriage was about 2 people becoming one, sharing everything, having no secrets. I was an idiot, a hopeful, romantic idiot who believed what the movies told me about love. The second decade was harder. The kids were teenagers. I was working double shifts to pay for their college, and Margaret seemed distant sometimes. But that's normal, right? That's what marriage is supposed to be like after 20 years. The passion fades a little, but the love deepens. The comfort grows. You become best friends who happen to sleep in the same bed. I started noticing little things in our 25th year. She'd get phone calls and step into the other room. She'd take longer trips to the grocery store. She'd wear perfume on Tuesday afternoons when she never wore perfume any other time. But I trusted her. I loved her. I never questioned it because questioning meant admitting something I wasn't ready to face. By our 30th anniversary, something had changed. We were going through the motions of being married, but the spark was gone. We'd sit at dinner and have nothing to say to each other. We'd watch television in silence. We'd sleep in the same bed but might as well have been on different planets. I blamed it on getting older. I blamed it on the kids leaving home. I blamed it on everything except the truth. That's when I found the letters. It was a Tuesday in October of 1987. Margaret was visiting her sister for the week, and I was cleaning out the attic. Behind a box of Christmas decorations, wrapped in an old towel, were dozens of letters. Letters that weren't from me. Letters from a man named David who worked at the bank downtown. Letters that went back 15 years. I sat on that dusty attic floor and read every single one. They weren't just friendly letters. They were love letters. Passionate, intimate letters that described a relationship that had been going on right under my nose for over a decade. This man knew things about my wife that I didn't know. He'd been places with her that I'd never been. He'd shared parts of her heart that she'd never shown me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut by a freight train. 30 years of marriage, and I'd been living with a stranger. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone had been lying to me every single day for 15 years. Every kiss, every I love you, every intimate moment we'd shared had been tainted by this other man's presence in her life. When she came home that Friday, I was sitting at the kitchen table with those letters spread out in front of me. She walked in, saw them, and her face went white as chalk. We stared at each other for what felt like hours. Then she started crying. Not the pretty kind of crying you see in movies. The ugly, desperate kind that comes from deep shame and fear. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw things. I wanted to pack my bags and walk out that door and never look back. But instead, I did something that surprised even me. I asked her to sit down. I poured us both a cup of coffee, and I said, "Tell me about David." For the next 6 hours, she told me everything. How they'd met when she opened a savings account for our son's college fund. How he'd made her feel young again. How he'd listened to her dreams and fears in ways that I apparently hadn't. How she'd fallen in love with him slowly. Over months of innocent conversations that became not so innocent. She told me how guilty she'd felt. How many times she'd tried to end it. How she'd never stopped loving me but had felt invisible in our marriage. How I'd become so focused on providing for the family that I'd stopped seeing her as a woman and started seeing her only as a wife and mother. The hardest part wasn't hearing about the physical betrayal. It was hearing about the emotional connection she'd found with someone else. It was realizing that while I thought we were solid, she'd been drowning, and I hadn't even noticed she was underwater. That night, I seriously considered leaving. I had my bag packed and sitting by the door. I was ready to walk away from 30 years of marriage, from the woman I'd loved since I was 26 years old, from everything we'd built together. My pride was shattered. My ego was destroyed. Every assumption I'd made about love and marriage had been proven wrong. But then I remembered something my father told me when I was young. He said, "Son, you'll face moments in life when you have to choices. Be right or be happy. You can't always have both." Sitting there with my bag packed, I realized I had to choose. I could be right. She had betrayed me, lied to me, broken our vows. I could walk away with my righteousness intact, or I could choose something harder. I could choose to stay and figure out how to rebuild something that had been broken, maybe irreparably. I could choose to face the uncomfortable truth that I'd played a role in pushing her away. I could choose to forgive something that felt unforgivable. I could choose to fight for us instead of fighting against her. That's when I learned the real secret to a long marriage. It's not about finding someone perfect. It's not about being perfect yourself. It's not about never making mistakes or never hurting each other. The secret is this: when everything falls apart, when the worst possible thing happens, when you discover that the person you thought you knew is a stranger, you have to decide if you're going to walk away or do the hardest thing in the world. You have to choose to forgive the unforgivable. You have to choose to rebuild instead of running. You have to choose to see the person behind the betrayal and ask yourself if they're worth fighting for. Not because they deserve it, not because it's fair, but because love isn't about keeping score. Real love is about choosing someone again and again, even when they've given you every reason to stop choosing them. I unpacked my bag that night. Margaret ended things with David the next day. We went to counseling for 2 years. We learned how to talk to each other again. We learned how to see each other as people instead of just roles we were playing. We learned that marriage isn't a fairy tale. It's work. Hard, dirty, uncomfortable work that requires you to grow up and face parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. The next 30 years weren't perfect. We had setbacks. We had fights. There were times when the old hurt would surface and we'd have to deal with it all over again. But we chose each other every single day. We chose to rebuild trust brick by brick. We chose to fall in love again, this time with our eyes wide open. Margaret died 3 years ago in my arms. She was 96 years old, and we'd been married for 60 years. In her final days, she told me something that still gives me chills. She said, "Joe, the best decision I ever made wasn't marrying you. It was staying married to you when neither of us wanted to anymore. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was young and stupid and thought love was enough. Marriage isn't about finding your soulmate. It's about choosing to become soulmates. It's about looking at someone who has hurt you, disappointed you, failed you, and deciding that they're still worth choosing. It's about forgiving things that feel unforgivable. It's about rebuilding when everything has fallen apart. Most people today give up the first time things get really hard. They think if it's not easy, it's not meant to be. They think love should always feel good. They think marriage should be 50-50. But real marriage isn't 50-50. It's 100-100. Both people giving everything they have, even when the other person doesn't deserve it. The secret to staying married isn't compatibility. Margaret and I were more different than alike. It's not communication, though that helps. It's not even love. At least not the kind of love you feel in the beginning. The secret is commitment, old-fashioned and fashionable. Choose them even when you dashed on single quotes T-1 to commitment. You young people today, you change jobs like underwear. You move cities for better opportunities. You trade in cars when you get tired of them. And you approach marriage the same way. When it gets hard, when the passion fades, when real life sets in, you think the solution is to find someone new. Someone who makes you feel the way you felt in the beginning. But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. That feeling doesn't last with anyone. That butterflies in your stomach, can't eat, can't sleep feeling is temporary. It's supposed to be temporary. It's nature's way of getting you to commit to someone long enough to build something real. Something deeper than feelings. If you want to stay married for 60 years, you need to understand that you're not just choosing a person. You're choosing to become a different kind of person. You're choosing to put someone else's needs ahead of your own, even when you don't feel like it. You're choosing to forgive, to rebuild, to start over as many times as it takes. Margaret taught me that marriage isn't about being happy all the time. It's about being committed all the time. Happiness comes and goes. Feelings change, people change. But commitment is a choice you make new every single day. I see young couples today, and they want guarantees. They want to know their spouse will never hurt them, never disappoint them, never change in ways they don't like. But there are no guarantees in marriage except this one. You will hurt each other. You will disappoint each other. You will change in ways that challenge everything you thought you knew about love. The question isn't whether these things will happen. The question is what you'll do when they do. Will you run? Or will you stay and fight for something bigger than your own comfort? I learned something else in those 30 years after Margaret's affair. I learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. I never forgot what happened. I never pretended it didn't matter. But I chose not to let it define us. I chose not to use it as a weapon every time we fought. I chose not to let it poison every good moment we had going forward. Forgiveness is a daily choice. Some days it's easy. Some days it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But if you want to stay married, you have to learn to forgive not just the big betrayals, but the small disappointments, the daily failures, the ways your spouse isn't who you thought they would be. And here's something else they don't tell you about long marriages. You have to forgive yourself too. I spent years blaming myself for not being the husband Margaret needed. I tortured myself with what ifs and should haves. But staying trapped in guilt doesn't help anyone. You have to forgive yourself for your failures and choose to do better going forward. The hardest lesson I learned, that love isn't a feeling that happens to you. It's an action you choose to take. When Margaret was sick those last few months, there were days when taking care of her was exhausting and frustrating and heartbreaking. There were days when I didn't feel loving at all. But I chose to act loving anyway. I chose to be patient when I felt impatient. I chose to be gentle when I felt angry. I chose to be present when I wanted to run away. That's what real love looks like. It's not the easy love of the honeymoon phase. It's the hard love of showing up when you don't want to. It's the mature love of choosing someone's good over your own comfort. It's the sacrificial love of putting their needs ahead of your own. Even when they can't do the same for you. People ask me all the time what the secret is to a happy marriage. But I think they're asking the wrong question. Marriage isn't about being happy. It's about being faithful. It's about being committed. It's about choosing to love someone even when they're not lovable. It's about building something together that's bigger than both of you. Happiness is a byproduct of doing marriage right, not the goal. When you focus on happiness, you make decisions based on how you feel in the moment. When you focus on commitment, you make decisions based on what's best for the relationship long-term. Margaret and I had seasons of great happiness and seasons of struggle. We had years when we couldn't keep our hands off each other and years when we could barely stand to be in the same room. We had times when we laughed together every day and times when we went weeks without really talking. But through it all, we chose each other. We chose to stay. We chose to work on it. We chose to fight for us instead of fighting against each other. If you're young and getting married soon, here's my advice. Throw out everything the movies taught you about love. Stop expecting your spouse to complete you or make you happy or fulfill all your needs. They can't. Nobody can. Stop thinking that if it's meant to be, it will be easy. It won't be. Stop believing that love is enough. It's not. Instead, go into marriage knowing that you're signing up for the hardest job you'll ever have. You're committing to love someone at their worst, not just their best. You're promising to stay when every instinct tells you to run. You're agreeing to grow and change and compromise in ways that will challenge everything you think you know about yourself. But here's what you'll get in return if you stick with it. You'll get to grow old with your best friend. You'll get to share 6 years of inside jokes and shared memories. You'll get to face whatever life throws at you with someone who knows you better than you know yourself. You'll get to build something beautiful and lasting in a world where most things are temporary. You'll get to be part of something bigger than yourself. You'll get to love and be loved in the deepest way possible. Not the easy love of the beginning, but the hard-won love that comes from choosing someone every day for decades. Not the love based on feelings, but the love based on commitment and choice and determination. And maybe, if you're lucky like I was, you will get to hold the love of your life in your arms as they take their last breath, knowing that you fought for them every single day you had together. You will get to look back on a lifetime of choosing love over ego, commitment over comfort, us over me. That's the secret to a 60-year marriage. It's not romantic. It's not easy. It's not what they show you in the movies. But it's real. It's worth it. And it's available to anyone willing to do the work. Margaret's been gone 3 years now, and I miss her every single day. But I don't regret staying. I don't regret forgiving her. I don't regret choosing love over pride back in 1987. Because those 30 years after we almost lost everything were the best years of my life. They were when we learned what real love actually looks like. So if you're young and in love, enjoy it. Celebrate it. Soak up every moment of that easy, butterflies in your stomach feeling. But don't mistake it for the real thing. The real thing comes later, when the butterflies are gone and you choose to love anyway. When it's hard and you choose to stay anyway. When they hurt you and you choose to forgive anyway. That's when you'll know you've found something worth keeping. Something worth fighting for. Something that can last 60 years and beyond. Choose wisely. Choose bravely, and when the time comes to choose between being right and being married, choose love. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, and the most important.